Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our caregiver session on assistive technology. My name is Sarah Elsden, and I'm the project coordinator at Chapel Haven. And with the CHAMP committee and Catherine DiCarlo's help, we have brought the focus of assistive technology to Chapel Haven. And we are at the stage of raising awareness, doing basic training for our consumers, the people we serve, all of our staff, and our awesome families and caregivers. So we just really hope that you find tonight beneficial. We have Dr. Lauren Tucker from Southern Connecticut State University here with us. She has been an amazing partner and will continue to be. She's done a ton of trainings already for us, and I know this information will be meaningful to you. We're going to save questions for the end. And we have until 7:30, so we hope that will be enough time. It's going to be a super rich session. And we will talk throughout about next steps. But basically, we hope that this partnership will be long-lived, and we have resources for you about, wow, if there's some light bulbs go off, okay, who to talk to and what do I do next? We'll cover that. So thanks again for being here. And this is Dr. Lauren Tucker.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Catherine, so good to see you as well.
Hi.
I'm going to put a link to the notes in the chat just in case you joined us and you would like to follow along. Feel free to save the presentation because there's a variety of different interactive links available as well. Before I get started, I just want to do some Zoom housekeeping. As Sarah mentioned, we will be recording for future use. We will pause the recording during questions, but also in your Zoom bar, if you would like, you can turn on the captions. So under your More menu, you can turn on to show the captions and it will be transcribing. You can watch the captions or there's a transcript as well. So either one, whatever works best for you. But thank you all so much for joining me. So to share a little bit about myself, so my name is Lauren Tucker. My background is actually a special education teacher. I was a high school and middle school special education teacher for the majority of my K through 12 career before I transitioned into assistive technology. I worked at ACES, if you're familiar with ACES, which is a kind of regional educational service here in Connecticut doing assistive technologies across the state. I then moved and I'm at Southern now. I'm the coordinator of our assistive technology graduate program, where I teach the courses within our assistive technology 6th year and certificate program. I do a lot of research on universal design, accessibility, adult learning, and now I've kind of reached into the realm of AI as well. But I'm really excited with this partnership that has started and is blossoming between Chapel Haven and I in Southern in supporting the mission of increasing awareness of around assistive technology. And today is one of those kind of moments where we're going to move forward with that. So what I'd like to start off to do is to lay the foundation around assistive technology. And the way how this presentation is going to work is I'm going to start off with just some basics around assistive technology. And then I'm going to share tools based on a specific task. And I'll explain a little bit more about why I'm doing that approach as I continue on with the presentation. But as Sarah mentioned, if you do have questions about a specific tool, please feel free. You can add it in the chat so that you don't forget it, but then I'll come back through and we'll go over questions towards the end. But laying the foundation, the first thing I want to start off with is what actually qualifies as assistive technology. And oftentimes, when you hear assistive technology for the first time, or when you hear it discussed specifically, oftentimes during important meetings, right, the assumption is that it's high tech and it's expensive, right? It's something that has a battery, it's something that's electronic. And that's not the case. Assistive technology does not need to be high tech. It doesn't need to be electronic. what the real important essence of assistive technology is what it does. And so, assistive technology, as defined in IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, but also through the World Health Organization, is any item, whether customized or purchased off the shelf, that improves, maintains, or increases the functional capability of an individual. So it truly is all about what it does, not necessarily what it is. So a piece of Velcro can be considered assistive technology, a slant board, pool noodles, which I have on my screen here. I'd say probably one of the most popular uses of pool noodles, right, is that you can utilize them for like bumper guards, right? For either walkers or supports or tennis balls at the bottom of walkers, right? All of these things are considered assistive technology based on their function. Now, I will be talking the majority of today about high tech, so tools that will kind of be electronic, utilized on smartphones, or tablets. However, it is important to raise that awareness that many different things qualify as assistive technology because they also qualify for funding sources. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that today as well. But that's why expanding this definition of what is assistive technology is really important, especially when we think about living at home and independent living, right? What kind of a stove works the best? What kind of an alarm clock? Anything like this, based on the function, can qualify as assistive technology. So, to piggyback off of that, the state, as many of you might be aware, provides some funding options. However, there is specific money that is allotted for assistive technology within the variety of different state departments. And one of the best resources for you all to know and to be kind of familiar with is something called the Connecticut Tech Act. And the Connecticut Tech Act is a federally funded project with the whole purpose of increasing awareness around assistive technology. So, this department within our state has, again, their whole purpose and mission is to support assistive technology for individuals across the lifespan. Our specific Assistive Technology Tech Act focuses on post school. So they do not emphasize kind of K through 12. They really do emphasize the adult and aging population, which is awesome because there's a lot of resources available. Specifically, what I also have linked on my presentation is the Connecticut Tech Act has all different resources identified on funding supports. So, for example, one of the functions for the Tech Act is to provide financial loans available for individuals to purchase assistive technology. For example, one of my friends used the AT loan to purchase an accessible van. So there is a cap in terms of how much you can loan, but they provide that financial support for the loan. But in addition to that, this mighty but small two-person team also provides support in looking for private grants. So, for example, if someone contacts their office and says, "Hey, I'm looking for support purchasing, an accessible oven. I'm looking to apply for the loan." They also then are very knowledgeable about private grants that are available. So they might be able to connect you or an individual with, here, there's this grant that could also help you fund that. So maybe the amount of money you're taking out for the loan is reduced. They've even had some awesome success experiences where they found so many grants for an individual that they didn't need a loan anymore. And that's real success. So knowing and connecting with this particular organization is extremely powerful here in Connecticut. Also, because it is a state organization, they have connections all over the place. So at this point, they are kind of underneath the Department of Aging. So they do have a lot of resources, again, within that space. Let's see. Oop. The other piece that I want to highlight within the Connecticut Tech Act is that they have partnered with a variety of different agencies throughout the state to provide different resources for assistive technology, specifically when we get into um, aging in place or independent living supports. Oftentimes, before you want to invest in something for your house, your apartment, you want to be able to try it. And that's what the Connecticut Tech Act has also partnered with. And within this space, they do provide financial support for organizations to purchase, right? Let's try and purchase this device with the understanding that it will then raise awareness and be available for individuals within the community to try out. So you'll notice here the device demo space within this website. The Connecticut Tech Act has partnered with a variety of different organizations who purchase equipment to allow the public to then explore and try out. One of my goals on this website is to list out exactly the general categories of tools that are available within each of these spaces. But for example, you can try out an oven. In this particular picture, we're going to talk about this MedMinder. But for some of the more expensive assistive technology, there's opportunities for you to go in and see it and experience it before kind of you make that commitment. And so that's again another really valuable asset that the Connecticut Tech Act provides. And you'll see again, there's even some that aren't listed here. So those are kind of the general funding options. And now I want to talk a little bit about like, but how do we know what to try, right? And if all of you are kind of coming to this presentation thinking about an individual in mind and kind of having that space of, but how do we know what to try? And in the field of assistive technology, we utilize something called the SET framework, and that was developed by a woman named Joy Zabala. And the whole purpose is to make sure that we are putting the person first. And it really is the epitome of person-centered planning. Because what we don't want to do is be enamored by technology, love this new technology, and fit the person to the tool. That's not going to be effective and is not a good use of resources. So what we want to do and what this framework does is it's called the SET framework. And for our purposes, we think of it as the self. So who is the individual? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they like? And what don't they like? So really thinking about who is this individual? The next step is we want to think about what's the environment in which they're going to function. So, where are they going to use this tool? Is it going to be at home? Is it going to be at school? Is it going to be at work? Is it going to be in the community? Is it going to be at church? So, where are they going to be experiencing and using this tool? And what task do they need to complete? Keeping things task focused is a great way to make sure that we are finding tools that are as effective as possible for individuals. So, what do they need to accomplish? The world of technology is vast, and I will tell you, especially with the emergence of AI, things are changing so rapidly, it's hard to keep up. So, in order to find the right tool, so many things can support an individual, but we want to be able to identify what's the task that they need to complete that we're looking for a tool to support. And that helps us narrow it down so that we can find one tool and start from there. And that's where then we moved into what tools do they currently have access to. The other piece that I have been working with that is really helpful is something called a technology proficiency survey, right? So trying to figure out exactly where an individual is in their use of technology. Because the other piece is we don't want to provide or recommend something that is out of the scope or realm or too far beyond or too far below what they're currently functioning in. So ensuring that we have a good idea of, hey, show me how to access your email. So these two research articles, they both have surveys in there that kind of talk about, okay, what could I ask you about your phone in order to identify the specific aspects, maybe of the accessibility features that would be beneficial to you. And those are some of the things I'm going to talk about today, but I also wanted to share some resources with you if you then wanted to kind of explore a step further. So now the more exciting part of the presentation is we're going to look at different tools and accessibility features on built-in devices. I'm going to be demonstrating, so I'm going to be using and hooking up my phone to the presentation as well, in addition to sharing in the PowerPoint. So I just want you to know that we are going to be switching screens a little bit, and I will always kind of share where I am and kind of ground everyone to what you're seeing, but I'm going to demonstrate as well to make this kind of as powerful as I can. My other disclaimer is that I am going to be demonstrating with an Apple device. I do within this presentation that I shared the link with, and I think Sarah has shared the link a couple of times in the chat. I do have links and resources to Android devices. My challenge with Android at times is so many different devices can use the Android platform is it can look a little bit different on each device. So please know if you are working from an Android device, there are often all of the same supports and resources on Android, but you kind of have to add them. They're not always built in. In Apple devices, because it's a closed environment, you're only working with an Apple iPhone or an Apple tablet, an Apple iPad. It's a lot easier to have very, very comprehensive accessibility supports. And that's what I'm going to show you today. So I know it is definitely going to feel Apple heavy today, but that is why. So I wanted to share that disclaimer with you, but there are resources on my presentation that will share kind of how to access these things on an Android device as well. So here's my first task. I wanted to start off with something a little bit more fun and a little bit more low tech. So let's say you have a task where the individual that you're working with, right, your loved one, has some difficulty holding cards, right? It's game night. You want to play Uno, you want to play poker, whatever you'd like to play. And it kind of just becomes a challenge with the individual keeping all of the cards together. Um, Also, beyond just kind of playing cards, this could also be a task where an individual has difficulty copying information, right? So copying from one thing to another or an order of tasks. This is one of my like most favorite low tech resources. So pool noodles, right? Never underestimate the power of a pool noodle that are all on sale right now as we are coming into the fall. But in this picture here, what it demonstrates is that if you cut a pool noodle in half and you put a slit at the top, it is a beautiful stand specifically for playing cards or Uno cards or anything like that. But also, it can be utilized for putting in different sequence steps. So I've used this especially with kind of like brushing teeth. So if you have these laminated cards, because what sometimes happens with me is I forget what step I left off on, right? So you're going through the steps. And what happens here is with these cards in the stable pool noodle, you can pull the step off as it's been completed. Something like this, because they are laminated and can be waterproof, this is another great tool that can be utilized in a shower environment, in a pool environment, something kind of where you might not want a high-tech device like an iPad available in the shower. So something like this in a low-tech sense, when we are thinking about the environment, that's something that will be really important. So this is kind of really my only low-tech support that I'm talking about today, but I did kind of just want to share a low-tech one. The next task is for maybe an individual needs to share a message. And this specific tool is called Voice It. And Voice It has been designed for individuals with non-standard speech. So individuals who have some difficulty with intelligibility and their family and their community might have great understanding of what they're trying to share. However, smart devices, smart speakers, or members of the community might have difficulty understanding exactly what they're asking for. Voice It, I will say, is the leader in this field when it comes to non-standard speech recognition. So I'm going to share this video. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear it. So if Sarah or Catherine, can you give me a thumbs up to make sure that I am sharing my sound once I play this? Thank you so much. Okay.
Welcome to Voice It's AI-powered voice recognition for people with non-standard speech. Let's see what amazing features you can take advantage of before you get started. Good morning, Michael. What'd you have for breakfast today?
I had a bowl of cereal and a cup of tea.
I had a bowl of cereal and a cup of tea.
Hey Google, turn on the light.
Hey Google, turn on the lights.
What's the weather in New York?
The weather in New York is currently cloudy and 57 degrees Fahrenheit.
I'm delighted to hear this with you and demonstrate what this continuous speech recognition that allows me to into the computer and that I can write emails and work-related documents. It's such a game changer.
Ready to unlock the power of Voice It? Get started today.
All right, so that was an example of Voice It. It is a paid service, so it is a subscription fee. It is rather expensive. However, it is well worth it when you think of kind of the power of kind of having that speech recognition. And this is something that would be able to be funded by a state support, right? So something like if we had vocational supports, right? Something like a BRS, all of these things, if it then helps that individual with employment or independent living, it can then be supported within that. And Voice It also has a 30-day trial, which I appreciate, and they are pretty flexible with extending it as well. If you then want to make sure that the individual, your loved one, is a good candidate. The second video I'm not going to play, but it also demonstrates the use of Voice It with smart speakers like Alexa. So specifically combining smart home devices and Voice It. So the next task I want to transition to, and again, I'm going to go a little bit fast and I apologize, but I want to try and share as much content as possible. So Sarah, as we mentioned, this recording will be available. So then you can pause it and kind of follow along, but I do want to make sure I can kind of reach as much as possible. So I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little bit brisk through the content. But the first thing is seeing text on your phone. And this is something that many individuals can have difficulty with, and we can kind of see them squinting at their phone. And there's a lot of eye fatigue that can go into accessing your phone. Specifically, we need to access healthcare information, social connections, financial support. And if kind of the accuracy of what you're seeing is impacted, it can really have a negative impact. So what I'm going to do now is for these next couple of kind of areas, I'm going to be sharing my phone. So I'm going to stop sharing my presentation and I'm going to transition to sharing my phone. All right. Can someone give me a thumbs up if they can see? Perfect. Thank you so much. And so here's my phone. And what I'm going to utilize is this is going to be my little pointer. So you can see my little dot going around, and this is going to be my pointer. So the first thing, the main area that we're going to look at right now is settings. So I'm going to open up the settings on my phone, and I want to review quite a few of the different categories that are available within the accessibility. And again, what I want to highlight is that all of these features are available built in to any Apple device. So whether it is an iPhone, an iPad, or a Mac device. So I'm going to tap on accessibility, and the first thing I'm going to open up is display and text size. And so what this allows me to do is to manipulate the kind of natural text that I can see on my phone. So you can see it right here. When I come over here and tap, I then now have bold text. For me, I love the bold text. I generally leave that on because it just helps when I'm looking at things. It also bolds the information underneath all of your apps, so that can really help. The other piece that there's an option is this larger text piece. So I'm going to tap on there, and they now have this space. I already have mine kind of larger, but I can turn on larger accessibility sizes, and I can increase the font size that is built in on my phone to rather large. So while I'm presenting today, I'm going to keep mine larger to make it a little bit easier to see. The one thing that I will say is that sometimes then it can kind of break up text the larger it is. So kind of being ready for kind of the visual change that it might give. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit there, right there. And so I'm going to now go back. And you'll notice, right, my menu is a lot easier to see. And so this is something again that when we're thinking of cognitive load and frustration, right? If I'm getting frustrated about finding a menu or finding something on my phone, then whatever task I'm trying to do could then be impacted after that. And that's something that can be really, really challenging. So anytime we can reduce frustration with technology engagement for anyone, it's really going to help kind of completing tasks and navigating technology in your efficiency. The next piece I want to share with you is this color filters piece. And this one is interesting because it doesn't work when I'm sharing my screen. I'm not really sure why. But I'm going to spotlight myself so that you can kind of see both what I'm sharing and what I do. So I just turned color filters on, and if you look on my screen, you will notice that my phone has like a blue tint. And what the color filters allow you to do is underneath this hue, you can change the tint of your phone. So I went to more of like a red now on my phone, and I personally like the blue. There's like an orange, but I tend to like blue. And I can also adjust the intensity. So how intense it is. There is quite a bit of research on kind of eye fatigue. There are blue light glasses, right, for working with technology. But when it comes to reading a lot on devices, that like white background with the black text can cause a lot of eye fatigue and be really challenging for some individuals who have print-based disabilities. So there is a lot of research on the benefits of color tinting, and this color tints your entire phone, anything you interact with. I know I have mine on, and I always forget I have it on. Like my eyes adjust to it, and I don't even notice I have the blue. The only time I notice it is when I like go to the hairdresser, and I'm like, "Here, can you make my hair look like this?" And she's like, "It's blue." I'm like, "Oops, sorry." And I always have to turn it off. And so I love kind of that color filter space, and even when I turn it off, I feel like my phone looks very weird to me. But that's something that, again, kind of making these little adjustments can be a significant improvement for someone as they're engaging with their phone. Let's see. So the other piece I want to share with you, I froze a little bit. Let me see if I can, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because my phone froze. I'm going to come back here. All right, so on the presentation, you will notice that I have the links. Oh, let me turn my spotlight off. Okay. You'll notice that I have the links to the display settings for Apple as well. And so if you click on this particular image, it will bring you to the steps in order to kind of adjust any of that content that I just shared with you. The other thing is that I have the Android steps as well. So again, my disclaimer is that for some Android devices, it might not follow that specific step sequence. So just kind of to know. So the next piece here is reading text. And this is something that can be extremely challenging on devices for individuals. And so what I want to kind of demonstrate for you is exactly how to listen to text using phones. All right, so I'm going to go back here. Hopefully this will work now. Just worked a moment ago. There we go. Okay, can everyone see my phone now? Perfect, thank you. So here I have an article up. It is through AARP, but you'll notice that there's a bunch of ads, right? And so the first thing before I listen to this technology, one of the things that I love on an Apple device is that there's something called Show Reader. And that's down here at the bottom of my kind of website bar. When I tap on these areas, it gives me this option of Show Reader. Oh. This up here. And I can hide my distracting items. Oh, I updated my phone and it looks different. Oh my goodness. Hold on one second, please. Oh, use reader. There we go. Okay. I'm going to open up my article now. And once I tap on here, I have this option to show reader. And what that does is it now pulls up the article with no ads. And I have just the text on here. What I can do in this article as well, if I want to, is I can immediately listen to it. I can change the text to make it easier for me to read. I can also change kind of the contrast on here. And I can make the text bigger. And this is all within this show reader option when I'm on an article. So it does only work when I'm on an article. But what I also want to share is if I click and I highlight text, I have an option to speak.
Though foldables have been around for several years.
So now, were you able to hear that? Beautiful, thank you. I'm sorry, my voice wasn't fabulous. You can change your voices as well. I don't know why I have her on there. But that allows me to listen to any highlighted text. That includes text messages, emails, any text that's on someone's phone. You can listen to it using this specific accessibility feature. It also allows you to listen to the entire page within this show reader. Here's that option there where I can listen to the whole thing. So there are so many amazing built-in supports that are available on devices. And so that kind of listening to text, I have to say that that's probably one of the ones that I utilize the most, is that speak screen option because there's text everywhere. Yes, the reader is so, so helpful. So here again on my presentation, what I just shared is this is where you would enable that. So under the settings and accessibility, under spoken content, turning that on, that speak selection option allows you to have text messages read out loud. Once you highlight them, you then have that speak option available. The other piece that I find is kind of the flip side of it, right? Where you might have difficulty with printed text. In the printed text, right? So if you're reading a prescription bottle, prescription directions, that is one of the things that I'm going to demonstrate for you today is I happen to have a prescription here and I want to show you kind of how you can magnify and utilize a specific tool called the magnifier on the Apple device in order to support that. So text can be so tiny, and on the screen here, I have one of those handheld magnifiers, and those can be really cumbersome, right? And not to mention, you've got to have that, and an individual pretty much always has access to their phone. And so switching it so that you can utilize your phone to support kind of magnification is huge. And phones are so expensive, mainly because of the cameras, right? That's why phones and smartphones are so costly. And so we need to be utilizing the camera kind of really to the greatest extent possible. So here I am again sharing my phone. And what I did is I searched for magnifier. Now, in the recent update, magnifier has moved to its own app. So I'm going to put the magnifier on here. Okay. And I'm going to open up my magnifier. And now you'll notice here, right? I've got a picture of kind of a medication script, right? And so that's something that is a great example of what can be very challenging. And so here, what I want to mention and show you is that I have this kind of magnification slider. Look how crisp and how much I can zoom in to these very, very tiny words. The other piece that I can do is I can also change the tint and the contrast if that helps kind of my vision, but how crisp that zoom is really astonishing. The other piece that I can do is I can go into the reader portion and this will pull in, oops, it's giving me all of my medical information, but I can pull into the reader and it will convert everything within that picture to text. So I can then listen to it again. And that's something, again, when we think about supporting independence and making sure that individuals have accurate information, utilizing the magnifier is truly can be a game changer on phones. The other piece that it has is there is kind of like door identification and it will like live identify different things in your environment. It's not perfect, but it is interesting. It will tell you that like there's a door 10 feet away that's a pull. So it will also provide support for individuals with low vision, if that's something that you're looking for. So here again on my presentation, I have different links to the magnifier built-in accessibility supports. And I also then have a link to something comparable that's available on Android. So here's another task that we might have difficulty with, which is sharing information. So finding websites or navigating multiple steps. here within the newest iPhone, so it's iPhone 7 or iOS 17, the operating system, allows something called assistive access now. And what this does is it completely reformats the phone presentation and how you interact with it. So you'll notice on my screen, the interface of the phone is completely different. Assistive access allows you to limit or adjust the different features on a phone and make it simpler to use. And I am going to take the time to show you kind of look at my phone. You've seen my phone, and then I'm going to switch it to assistive access so you can see the difference. So I'm going to turn it on now because in the interest of time, I'm not gonna go through all the steps, but I want you to show, as you all saw my phone previously, I'm gonna turn it on now, and then I'm going to share my phone in assistive access mode. So that is under settings, and it's under accessibility as well. And what you can do is pick the specific apps and different capabilities that you would like within the assistive access space. So here, especially when you have individuals who are kind of learning phones for the first time, right? Learning the new interface and might get overwhelmed. Assistive access is a great place to start. Exactly. Sarah wrote in the chat when smartphones might feel a little bit too complex. So here, I'm going to now share my screen, and we're going to go back to my phone. Okay, so now you should be seeing my phone, and you will notice here that I do still have my pointer, right? But I have a very simple layout. When I come in here, I can go into music, and what I've done is I've actually just picked one specific playlist. So this is the playlist that comes up. You'll notice I have a play button, but I always now have this back button. The other piece here, when I go into camera, I have an option to then take the picture. So I can take a photo and then I go back. I can also pick, do I want to be able to do a selfie? Do I not want to be able to do a selfie? And then I also can choose messages. So who can the individual kind of communicate with? Is it all contacts? Is it only known contacts? You can also adjust it so that the individual can use kind of emojis or text, but it really does, you'll notice kind of how simplified the phone interface has become. And you can link kind of non-native Apple apps. So here I can open up Amazon, and it still looks, it's the exact same Amazon app that is interfacing on every other phone, but it is kind of shrunk down a little bit because it still always has the back button. But you'll notice there that any other app that you would want access to is still available within this assistive access, but it's a much simplified, again, interface on the phone. Okay, now I'm gonna bounce back here. Okay. So the other piece of reading printed text beyond the magnifier is you might also want an individual to take a picture of a flyer and either be able to listen to that text or manipulate it, or take a picture of a business card. And now within kind of many smartphones, there's built in, it's something called optical character recognition, which it takes a picture of a letter and converts it to that letter. So now what is really awesome is when you take a picture of a business card or contact information, you can actually highlight that text that is available on there. And you'll notice on my screen, it then says you can add it to contacts. So it automatically recognizes when you take a picture of a business card or of contact information, and it allows the individual to then immediately add it to contacts. Again, that's reducing cognitive load. It's also reducing the amount of steps where maybe you could misinput a number, right? Or miss information. You can also listen to text after you take a picture of it. Just as you can with the magnifier, you can do this in a lot of different ways. And I do have a video here of me kind of looking at a magazine and listening to text on the magazine. For an Android device, you can do something almost as similar using a tool called Microsoft Lens. And what that one does, again, it is using AI at this point, but it allows you to then take a picture of content and you can listen to the text, you can copy and paste it, but it will also kind of give you general descriptions like of products that you have and of different things. So it really is a very cool tool. It does kind of more than even what I'm sharing with. The next task that someone might have difficulty with or assistive technology can support is getting ready on time. So time management, remembering steps. It could be a combination of a lot of things, right? The steps are complex. It could be a memory difficulty, distraction, motivation, like all sorts of factors kind of might contribute to a challenge with this particular task. And so smart home devices can be amazing supports. And oftentimes we need to pair them with something else, right? Like the Voice It app that I shared previously. But one of the things that's so important is ensuring that we are kind of remaining device inclusive. So if we are working with an individual who is familiar with Apple, who utilizes all Apple devices, and everyone in their community is using Apple, then we need to think about, okay, what sort of a smart device are we using? Do we then want to use an Apple smart device because that's the platform that the individual is used to? Or does it make sense to go to Google? For me, although I have an Apple phone, all of my smart devices are all Amazon. So I have Amazon Echoes and Amazon Dots. What I love is I have the drop-in feature. I don't know if any of you use that, but like that feature is truly a game changer for me. I have three children, and so each of them have a an Amazon Echo Alexa in their rooms. But what it allows me to do is I can drop in on the dot. So I can, if there's a babysitter home, or if I want to ask them a question and they're kind of upstairs, I can drop in and it becomes like an intercom system. And so it's a really nice drop-in tool, and I can do it directly from my phone. So I can drop in. I can also like hear what's going on in the room. And it does light up. So they do know like when mom is dropping in. But something like that is a really nice feature to have kind of within multiple rooms. But these smart devices really do provide so many supports when it comes to routines and automation beyond just the drop-in feature. I know I have consistent reminders for kind of when my children need to transition into time to get dressed, right? Time to transition here when it's a school day, and you can set repeating reminders on devices and specifically from your phone. So you don't need to be there with them, which I also really like. Oh, so here's my reminders. So here are kind of some options. Here we've got get up and get dressed. So you'll notice my daughter Kennedy does need frequent reminders. So she gets a couple, right? Get up and get dressed, then she gets another get dressed. But you can also kind of set the alert volume, and you can get notifications kind of on your phone and on the device as well. And so those are all features that I really like to utilize. And you can always do like a follow-up. So how many times do they announce the reminder? You can really customize the persistence of your smart device, which again, I really appreciate. And this automation piece, again, is something that I feel like I'm almost just kind of touching the surface with when it comes to many of these devices. So one of the, if you take away kind of one major thing here is in an Apple iPhone, on Apple devices, there's something called shortcuts. And what that allows you to do is automate multiple steps. So for example, if every time you 10 o'clock is your routine where you always work out and you turn on one specific workout app and you always turn on your one playlist. You can set an automation so that you tap one button on your phone and it opens the workout app, sets a timer, and starts your playlist. And so what it allows you to do is take a multiple step sequence and reduce it into one or two taps. And the articles that I have on here kind of show you step by step. And one of the things that I really like to do is we're not kind of jumping into AI in this session, but using artificial intelligence to give you ideas of shortcuts can also be really powerful. I'm going into work and I always kind of text my mom and tell her that I'm there. So I have one shortcut set up where it says kind of photo check-in, and I check in with my husband. And when I tap on that, it pulls up my camera. I can take a picture and it immediately sends that picture to my husband. And I follow quite a few different individuals on social media. And one woman shared she's got a I fed the dog shortcut, which is I feel like I definitely need, where you can scan something right next to the dog bowl and it immediately sends a text message to whoever you need to notify that says I fed the dog. But something like that, right? Adding in that automation can reduce so much kind of frustration, cognitive load, memory to then free up more space, time, and flexibility for other more important tasks. And so that's why kind of thinking about different moments, right, where you have frustration, or just kind of like, I always do this, right? So when I first started sharing my screen on my phone, I tapped something that pulled up my little pointer, right? That pointer is in settings. It takes me about like 4 taps to turn it on. But instead, I created a shortcut where I just tap it once and immediately turns on. So thinking about kind of working with yourself, your individual, as to like, what do you do all the time? And can we set up an automation for that? The shortcuts do also allow for you to have automation, um, like based on your location. So it can say like, hey, I just got here, and it can automatically share your location with someone. Or it can notify you when you leave a certain location, like, don't forget to lock the door or don't forget your keys. So it really does kind of help to support all sorts of different, again, sequences or aspects. And so this is for me something where I can like get lost in shortcuts because there's so much potential for supporting someone in developing shortcuts. This other tool that I really like for kind of, again, morning routines and doing complex tasks is something called CanPlan. Now it's based out of the UK, and I did try to download it the other day, and it did seem like it was kind of only available, it wasn't letting it happen in the US, but so I hope this would work if any of you are interested. But this free app allows you to add in different steps to a specific task, and you can link those steps with pictures and directions. So on my screen here, I'm demonstrating, and I have pictures of making coffee. What's so nice is that you can take pictures of your coffee maker. You can also embed videos so that kind of you can demonstrate exactly what loading it or how many scoops to do. And right at the bottom, it will always read this out loud. So it will read aloud, remove tray lid and fill with 10 scoops of coffee. Wow, that's very strong coffee. Um, and so I really like, you can also set reminders as well, but it can be a really powerful but simple tool. Another one that kind of can take to-do steps or visual kind of reminders to the next level is called Timo. And this one, what I like is it also connects to Apple Watches. So if you are kind of an Apple user, it will then coordinate and it has a built-in visual timer. And so this one, if you're setting okay, I need to study from 10 to 11 today, it then pulls up your visual timer on your phone, and then it will allow you to kind of have that kind of visual and auditory reminder of when you need to stop studying or how long you need to study for. They've also added quite a bit of AI integration. So you can kind of just say to it, today I need to, do laundry, attend my meeting at 10 o'clock, but also grade just before I pick up the kids at 2. It will then create kind of a time-based schedule for you. Oh, thanks, Sarah. Or not. Sarah confirmed that it's not available in the US. So just in case you might have already downloaded it, because I'm grandfathered in. But it's a really nice, and the AI integration, I find there are lots of features, so it can be a little bit overwhelming, but depending on what you're looking for, it can be really powerful. The other piece is we can have some challenges with screen time, and social media addiction, or kind of knowing when to scale some things down. And I love the screen time and app limit option within Apple devices. However, they're really easy to ignore. You can set the app limit and it's like, hey, Catherine, you should probably get off this game in 5 minutes. And Catherine can just be like, ignore, thanks for the time. Um, However, you can utilize something called a screen time passcode. This screen time passcode is separate from your lock passcode. And what I find is really helpful is if you partner with a caregiver or a friend, right, to then say, hey, I want you to set the screen time passcode for me. Because I know with my self-control is that I don't want to get off after an hour. So I don't want to know the passcode, right? And having that conversation with an individual and saying like, "Hey, I know that's really hard, right? But this is going to help you." And we all kind of, I know for me, even setting the screen time limits, like the mood change can be significant, right? And feeling that weight after kind of not having unlimited access. And so although kind of it is something that is important to kind of have an understanding, right? That this is a separate passcode and it's something that the individual doesn't know. But I do find that it's a nice built-in kind of support to help with some of that screen addiction, right? Because these devices and apps are made to keep people on them, right? That is the whole purpose. And so oftentimes having that kind of little extra support is just what someone needs in order to be able to kind of come off of it. And so I did want to highlight because it's not as a parent, right? But that option I find has been really helpful for me to utilize. And so, I have a screen time passcode. But my kids don't know it, right? So although they might know the passcode to the iPad, they don't know the screen time. So no matter what, when the screen time is up on a particular app, and you can even set it to like, don't allow me to open this app after 10 p.m., right? And so that's something, instead of just saying, only allow me to be on this for an hour, right? You can also set like downtime restrictions. And again, that's something that is really important for kind of learning technology and managing kind of interaction with technology. The other piece is, so this is kind of, now imagine the situation, right, where an individual is kind of sharing phones, right, or utilizing their phone in the community, or might lose their phone frequently. Built into Apple devices, you have an opportunity to set a passcode or to do facial recognition to open an app. And the reason I want to highlight this is that you need to add it specifically for apps. But when we are looking for safety, and individuals who are working with multiple different people throughout the day or in the community, you can set this so that in order to open, and I have mine where it's the Ring doorbell, but I'm thinking more specifically about banking apps or health apps, right? You can set the app so that you're requiring Face ID to open it. So even if the phone is unlocked already, Face ID is required to get into that particular app. This is something that safety wise, again, if someone does share their phone or has friends around, or kind of it's another safeguard to ensure that we are protecting private and confidential information. And I do kind of love this additional situation that you can add, and ensuring, right, that we have the Face ID set up for like autofill passwords, right? To then make sure that as someone has their device with a lot of sensitive information, that we are also providing that protection. So this is something, right? Protect these sensitive apps to ensure, again, that individuals' sensitive data or financial data isn't compromised. So another one. So I'm going to stop at about 7:15 for questions. So I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to stop at 7:15 just to let everybody know. So I'm going to kind of pivot now. I'm going to think a little bit more about and talk a little bit more about preparing for an interview. So thinking about whether it's a job interview, a personal interview, or kind of a conversation that someone might be worried about. One of the things that I really love to do, especially when I'm encountering a more sensitive or emotional situation, is I love utilizing AI and Chat GPT. So that is kind of the AI that I generally utilize, has a talking feature. And what I will generally do is I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm not going to share it with you, but you're going to be able to hear my phone. But you can ask it to essentially role play. So I'm going to share my prompt, and let's see here. So you can hear me. I'm going to unplug this. Okay. So on your Chat GPT, it's actually a different picture now. It's like almost like a speaker button. It's a white circle, but that brings up talking.
Hey there, what's up? Let me know what's on your mind or what you need, and I'm here to help.
Role play with me. You are a hiring manager at a grocery store. Ask me an interview question and give me critical feedback on my response to improve in order to be an appropriate candidate for the job.
Absolutely, let's do it. All right, so imagine we're sitting down for a grocery store interview. Here's a question for you. Can you tell me about a time when you had to help a customer who was frustrated or unhappy and how you handled that situation? You can go ahead and answer, and then I'll give you some feedback.
I get really nervous when I see people who are unhappy, so I generally tend to avoid them so that I don't have to worry about it.
That's a totally understandable feeling to have, and I appreciate you sharing it. So from a hiring perspective, one piece of feedback would be to think about how you could reform that. For example, you might say something like, I sometimes feel a bit nervous dealing with upset customers, but I try to focus on listening to them and finding a solution. That way you're...
So really natural, right? Like it sounds like I'm talking to someone. What I also really like is that it then gives me the text of that conversation, because she does go a little bit fast, but you can ask her all different ways. So I've kind of worked on prompting in order to kind of get the information that I want. But like I will use it when I'm like having a tough conversation with my daughter's teacher. And so if we are then prepping for social conversations, right now, AI is not a fail-safe by any means. However, if you are kind of having a difficult conversation, it's a really nice prep. It's a really nice kind of safe place to explore. What could I say? I do find she is overly positive, right? So that answer that I gave was not good. Um, and she at least did say, like, from a hiring perspective, not the best, but she does err on the side of being complimentary. But again, when you are working and practicing, a conversation with a family member or approaching a volunteer situation, having kind of not knowing what the app is going to say next is actually a really nice, safe environment. Well, not safe, but because it can really say anything, but it gives us kind of a safe from a learning standpoint, right? Low risk. That's what I'm starting to say. Low risk situation, not safe. Um, Another task that someone might have difficulty with is keeping track of items. And this is something for me that I use all the things that are listed on this app. One of my favorites is the um, key finder, but I actually don't use it as a key finder. I use it as a remote control finder. So I actually put these little sticky notes or these little sticky tags on our remotes for the TVs. And so the little receiver, then if I hit the red one starts to beep so I can find it when it kind of goes into the abyss of the couch corner. I can then find it and I can hear it. So that's something, and these are available on Amazon. But if there's something that an individual kind of frequently, and again, that's losing the remote brings an emotional response, right? That can really be challenging. And I know I get frustrated immediately. And so eliminating that level of frustration can again be so powerful for someone as you are kind of going through your day. I love the tile apps. I utilize these for finding keys. They will interact with your phone. They connect over Bluetooth where you can double tap the tile and your phone rings. So if you need to find your phone and have your keys, you can help find your phone. Or if you have your phone and can't find your keys, you can do it that way. And then finally, the AirTag does help with kind of sharing a more precise geolocation, but it is a more passive. You can't interact from the AirTag to your phone. And when it comes to AT for home safety, there's a wide array of levels where you can go when we are looking at home safety. So I want to start off a little bit about kind of like DIY, and I have this video here. I'm not going to play it, but this video outlines how to create motion sensor lights. So for example, if you're worried about someone getting up in the middle of the night and tripping over something or kind of being in an unfamiliar space, you can, in a pretty affordable way, create motion sensor lights. So as an individual puts their feet on the ground, the strip of lights underneath the bed light up so that they can see their path into the restroom or see their path into the kitchen. So that's kind of one area if you are a little bit worried again about like nighttime navigation or fall prevention. That's kind of one step. And then there are also kind of, I have links to wandering resources and personal alarms. I will say I linked to a UK-based company, a UK-based resource. It is so comprehensive and awesome, but some of them are listed kind of in euros, but it's a very, very helpful resource. So there are kind of US equivalents available. Oops. Oh, nope. But one option for kind of monitoring, which I really like, is activity monitoring. So this is something where it will give a caregiver notifications regarding patterns of activity. So if you're concerned about kind of falling, safety wise, so this is kind of a privacy first motion sensor, which I really like. So it really is just providing feedback on level of activity. So if the activity of a space kind of decreases or increases, it will then provide feedback to the caregiver. I don't think this one, yeah, so it does. It talks about unusual routines, but without cameras, right? So it provides that privacy. I do think this one has, many of them have temperature gauges, right? So if the temperature kind of drastically changes in the environment, I don't know if this one does. This one also does have kind of personal alarms as well, but I really do like kind of the activity space, but providing the privacy. There are lots of different products, so I'm just showing you one product to provide this particular support. And then other general categories, right? There can be like bed sensor supports, kitchen device sensors when we look at kind of oven safety, microwave safety, different sensors for different appliances, but also medication dispensers, all the way from kind of like time-based medication dispensers. I'd say one of the most elaborate is the MedMinder. And this one provides kind of it's pre-filled, so the prescription comes already in the pre-filled containers, and at the day and time, the specific box lights up and unlocks. So it provides kind of a very specific dosage and helps with medication control to ensure an individual doesn't under or over medicate. It also has this screen with reminders. It does have kind of medical call and medical alert available, but it will automatically like send a text message to a caregiver, or send a reminder on the individual's phone if a medication dosage was missed. So it will kind of help to provide specific dosage support. Okay. Whew. Look at that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing. I am going to pause the recording, and I'm going to look